Today, we are going to dive into bad feelings, bad beliefs, and bad techniques around selling. The most important thing I think about learning a new technique or new things about something that we already know about in some capacity is that we have to get rid of and acknowledge that our old beliefs no longer serve us. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to recognize where these beliefs and these experiences may have happened that have made us believe certain things about selling. And then next week, we're going to, during your homework over the weekend, you're going to work on removing those because they no longer serve us. And then next week, we're going to replace those stories with new stories, new techniques, and things that do serve us and will make us really good salespeople and make us feel really good about selling. A couple things today. I have my daughter here who's already mommying me. So if for whatever reason I will step away, I'll be back. 1 second, I will be right back. What? Okay, we're back. Number 2, if for whatever reason, like I always say, Facebook wants to kick me off or my internet goes crazy, I will be back on a new live video. Just hang out in the group and check and just wait there and I'll be back, okay? And number 3, if you're watching live or on replay, just say hi in the comments, and if you have any questions along the way, just feel free to put them in the comments and I will address them. If anything comes up after the fact, just put it in the Facebook group and we'll talk about it and I can respond there. But in the meantime, if you're watching and something comes up, just leave it in the comments and I will definitely help address that, okay? So like I was saying, today we have to talk about the bad stuff that we believe around selling. Just like with money or anything else, we all have these beliefs around selling. And this may be because we have been conditioned to believe that. Maybe we took a college class one time that was all about selling and they gave you these like very specific techniques, and then you went out into the world and you tried to use them and they failed miserably. Or maybe you have been on the receiving end of a sales pitch that just felt really gross. I mean, every day it's like you get direct mail in your mailbox trying to sell you something, a credit card or a new mortgage rate or something, and it's just so impersonal and so just horribly wasteful. Those are all those bad techniques that kind of make us have these beliefs around selling that make us feel like we can't be good at it. And so today we have to spend time recognizing that. We have to spend time understanding where those beliefs come from, why we have them, and then by doing that, we can start to get rid of them. I always think of this as like a garden. When you go out into this in spring and you go out and it's time to plant a new garden for the season. Maybe over the winter a bunch of weeds have popped up and those weeds go deep. They have roots and they are overtaking your beautiful garden. And so what you have to do before you plant new flowers or new plants is pick the weeds. Make sure they're gone before you can put new ones in. And this is the same thing we do with new techniques and beliefs around selling, around money, or anything like that. You have to remove the old beliefs, knowing that they no longer serve you. Maybe they served you once, but now we are evolving and growing, so they no longer serve us, and therefore we have to get rid of them before we put new ones in its place. Otherwise, we're just putting new ones on top of old ones, and it gets really messy and weird. So we have to be able to recognize where the old ones come from. So we're going to talk about bad techniques today, and we're also going to talk about why you have bad feeling around selling, okay? And so the first thing that I want you to recognize is that maybe you just have core beliefs around sales. Like the word sales or selling makes you feel a certain way. It may be good, it may be bad, but you definitely have some kind of emotional response to it. So I want you to think about that. Like, what are some of the things that come up when you think about, oh my gosh, I have to sell this service or I have to sell this product? What can we what can we immediately feel? You know, once upon a time when I first started being a entrepreneur, I think I said this the other day, I was like so opposed to being a salesperson that I actually told my husband, I was like, maybe you can just do all the sales and find all the new contracts and things, and then I can focus on the doing, like the creative part of things. Well, that never happened. And as solopreneurs or entrepreneurs or like a brand of any kind, we need to adopt this feeling that we, as the brand, as the owner, are the salespeople. We are always selling. Okay? And so if we have these negative beliefs, or we have a negative connotation around the word sales, going out and selling, knowing that we have that negativity around it, is not going to serve us well. Okay? So let's try and understand these beliefs. Where are they coming from? So one of the main beliefs around selling that I hear a lot is that we think that we are harming someone, and not in a physical way, but we believe that maybe we're selling something to someone who doesn't need it. We're just giving them more crap in their life, okay? We're giving them more stuff to buy. We're just, maybe they can't afford it. Maybe it's that. Like, in some way, this product or service is going to hurt somebody negatively. The person buying it, they are not going to benefit. They are actually going to be taken back because they can't afford it, they don't need it, they already have a few, whatever the reason is. We just believe that it doesn't serve them. They don't need it. They can't afford it, whatever. So this belief may come from maybe an experience that you've had. Maybe you've just believed that all sales is just negative, like you don't need anything in life. So we have to start working on where that's coming from. Where does that belief come from? If you can understand, yeah, when I think of selling and I'm like talking to somebody and I'm like, oh my God, they don't need it. I'm just selling bullshit. Why? Why do you feel that? If you're selling something that you truly believe in, that you love, that you're passionate about, that feeling should not be there. That feeling should not exist because you truly believe that this thing can help anybody or the person that you're selling to. So instead, we need to start thinking, yeah, this thing can help someone. It can gain a result. They can gain a result that they wouldn't have without this. That's such a better way of going into it. And it's not manipulative, and we're going to talk about manipulation, because if you truly believe in your core that whatever you're selling will provide a transformation, well, then you aren't selling anything wrong. You aren't doing anything wrong because you truly believe what you're doing will result in a transformation. And sometimes you have that proof, right? Sometimes you have that proof from somebody who has experienced your service or your product in the past and they rave about it. And sometimes you're new and you don't have that proof yet. You don't have the testimonials and you don't have the reviews. And you're like, well, how? You just have to believe it yourself. How has your service transformed you? How do you just have to have that knowing feeling that this is going to make somebody's life better. If you don't believe that, then what's the point of selling what you're selling, right? If you don't believe it. That's why it's like, you know, people used to go door to door with like vacuum cleaners and stuff. And I'm like, do you have one of these? Like, do you ever ask people, like, if they're selling something, you're like, do you have this? If they don't, maybe there's something wrong. It's like when you ask your doctor for advice, like with a vaccine, you're like, well, would you get this? Would you give your kids this? And if the answer is no, then you got to think twice about it. But if somebody asked you, like, would you buy what you're selling at the price that you're selling it? And if your answer is anything else but yes, then you need to think twice about what you're selling and how you're pricing it. But if you genuinely believe in it and you go in with the attitude of this will result in some kind of gain as a result, because you're buying this, then it's not harming anybody. It's not harming anybody. Okay? So another belief that you might have is that you have to make the sale and the experience of the sale very self-oriented. So you have to believe, or maybe you sit there and you believe that selling, the end result of selling something is money in your pocket. And so that's greedy, right? Making money is greedy. And so if I'm selling something, ultimately I'm greedy. Maybe you have that belief. Or maybe you think that you have to have some kind of charm. You have to have some kind of personality to be able to sell. Maybe you think you have to be manipulative. Maybe you think all of these things. Well, at the end of the day, and what we'll talk at length about next week, is that selling is actually other-oriented. It's very, very seldom about you. When we are focused on the other person in the selling experience, their fears, their goals, their desires, their setbacks, their story, their perspective, when we are focused on them and we are good listeners, then we will be able to sell to them because we will understand who they are and where they're coming from. It's all about listening and having good communication skills. That's the only thing you need to worry about in the situation. Being genuine and listening, but very seldom is selling about yourself. Yes, you get benefits from it. You get to work with this wonderful person. You get money in your pocket. There are good things that come for you out of the sales experience, absolutely. And that's not a bad thing, but we assign it a negative thing because we think that we may not deserve it, or we're not worthy of it, or whatever our beliefs are around it. But when we think about the two that I just mentioned put together, it's about them and how it will transform them. That's addictive. When I see some of the clients that I work with and how much they have changed from the time we first started working together till now, I have to sit back and say, well, what would have happened if I didn't sell them my services? This wouldn't have happened, at least not in this time frame. Maybe it would have happened, but down the road. But right now, this would not have happened without my services. And that's such a cool feeling to see. People making money, people selling things that they've always thought about. People literally going out there and doing things that they have always scared them because of the service that I get to provide. That has nothing, I mean, it makes me feel really amazing, but that has nothing to do with me. It's their transformation. And so when we go into a sales experience, or we start selling and we think about the other-oriented approach, and we think about how it's going to transform them, it makes things a lot more fun. Even if you're a product if you sell a product, how can this thing serve somebody? Maybe it's something like a water bottle, right? It's just something simple like a water bottle. Well, if you're having trouble like being hydrated, this water bottle will help you. It will help you feel better. How can you think of the transformation that your product provides? Sell that. And sell it to people who are being upfront about where they are. Because if you allow people to be upfront, give them their entire story, there's no way on this earth you can be manipulative. Selling is not inherently manipulative. Sometimes we tie those things together. Oh, well, these techniques, somehow this will manipulate somebody into buying something. No. We're transforming, we're not manipulating. We're selling a transformation. And if we genuinely see and believe that transformation is going to happen, there's absolutely nothing manipulative happening. Maybe you think, a salesperson has to be aggressive in some way, in some capacity. You have to have the hard sell, like, you can't leave this room until I sell you something, or, high pressure sales where it's like literally banging on the table, and maybe you think you have to take advantage of people. And I can see that some of these beliefs may come from like a typical sales environment. Like a lot of sales jobs have quotas that they have to fit. And so they are under a high pressure situation because they have to fill the quota. Well, my perspective is that there's no pressure on anybody. If somebody isn't buying something, it's most likely not because of what you're saying, what you're doing. It's usually because they are just not feeling aligned with the sale. And if they're not feeling aligned with the sale, then there's absolutely no need to pressure somebody or feel like they need to or push them into something that they're not aligned with. That's just not even ethical. And we're all good people here. So we don't need to push anybody beyond their boundaries or beyond their, wherever they are to feel a certain way. I always give like options. Okay, well, I'm here. That's what if you can't do this right now, I'm here. When you're ready, I'm here. No pressure. Think about being the consumer on the end of that. If I'm saying, no pressure, but I'm here when you're ready. You would feel a lot better about that than me saying, no, like you need this. You need this. I genuinely don't think that anybody needs anything other than like the core food, shelter, water, obviously. So I'm not going to tell you you need anything. And I'm certainly not going to tell you that you need to go in debt for anything. But I am going to tell you that when you're feeling aligned, when you're feeling good about it, I'm here. It's all about you. Sometimes you just have to be patient. There's no need to put pressure on. And the other thing about putting pressure on or having some kind of high pressure situation is that we are coming from a place of lack or scarcity in that situation, trying to fill a quota. If we're putting pressure on somebody, maybe we're like, oh my gosh, I have a bill to pay. If they don't buy this, then I'm not going to be able to pay my bill. We don't sell from a place of lack. Like that's a basic rule. We do not sell from a place of lack. If you're feeling scared about money or about how many clients you're working with, you don't sell from that place. It's always got to be from a place of passion, love, enjoyment, excitement, abundance. Maybe you think you're taking advantage of people and they're buying something because you brought it to their attention. What if you stopped looking at it that way and you started thinking back to the transformation? Without this product, service, this person will not have the transformation that they desire. I'm giving them that. I'm allowing them that. If you think about it like this, and this is very deep, but I truly believe this. We are all given these strengths and these ideas of our businesses for a divine purpose. We were given these because we were meant to follow them and to act upon them and to build something from them. And so by not following that and by not providing the service to somebody, we're actually doing the world a disservice because we're not sharing. Let's stop thinking of selling as selling and start thinking of it as sharing. Maybe you believe that skill or that selling and being good at sales is a skill that cannot be taught. You were born with it. You were just a natural. Sometimes I think that this is something I believe. Like I see my husband who is naturally gifted with people. He's very extroverted. He could make friends with literally anybody. And I'm like, you were born to be a salesman. me, I'm introverted. I don't even call the pizza place to order pizza. Like, it makes me uncomfortable. I used to have my sister call my high school boyfriend because I was scared that his mom would answer the phone. Like, I hate talking to people. So I'm just like, well, I'm not a natural salesperson, right? What if you started to adopt the belief that selling is a skill that can be taught and that we can perfect and that we can get better at it and become more confident with it? Maybe you're like, well, okay, great, but I don't know what to say. Well, maybe we start studying it. Maybe we start taking classes like this. Maybe we start reading more about it. Maybe we start being in situations where we're being sold to and we're like, yes, that feels good, or no, that feels bad. And we start adopting the things that feel good. Maybe we start saying, yes, I am becoming a better salesperson. This is exactly the work that I've been doing this year. I realized that being a business owner, I'm a salesperson, first and foremost, because without sales and bringing money in, I don't have a business, I have a hobby. And so I have to sell in order to have a business. And so if I start thinking, okay, first and foremost, I'm a salesperson, that bridges the gap between this belief that no, I don't have that skill set, and yes, I do. I'm becoming better at it. I'm learning more about it. I'm reading about it. And then I see the proof in the pudding and I see my income go up and I'm like, holy crap, this stuff's actually working. I am becoming better at it. So it is a skill that we can learn. So those are some of the beliefs we might have around selling, right? Some of the beliefs we have around selling and what we can do to start bridging the gap between the limiting belief and the belief that we can lean into that will help us become better at it. Next, we also may have experiences. Maybe we've had really good experiences with salespeople, and maybe we've had really bad experiences with salespeople. Let me tell you a story about a really bad example of a story of sales tactic that I was on the receiving end of. It was last year, like right in the middle of quarantine. So my family and I were at home and we weren't going anywhere. And we had two like very young girls, not young, like 20 years old, come to our door, and they were selling books for children, like curriculum, at home curriculum. And I was like, oh, well, like my kids aren't in school right now. Maybe this is something that I can really use. So first off, she talked to my husband, and my husband has the ability to say no. But before he could say no, she said, well, can I talk to your wife? And so he sent me out there, and I was so mad. He sent me out to talk to, but there were two girls. One was just kind of quiet in the background. The other one was very much the talker. And she sat me down and she asked me all these questions, and she was not letting me say no. Even when I was saying no, she would have a rebuttal for it. And it got to a place where I just felt incredibly uncomfortable. And I was like, I need to go inside with my kids now. Please go. I'm not buying that. I'm not buying what you have because you made me feel uncomfortable. You put the pressure on me, and I don't like that. I don't like that at all. I also didn't enjoy that she was not telling me the price. I was very upfront. I was like, well, how much does this cost? And she would sidestep that question over and over and over again. And I was like, hello, I just want to know how much it costs. Like, you don't walk into the grocery store and just pick stuff off and then you're surprised at the counter. You have a general idea of how much things cost up front, and that makes you make a decision on what you're going to buy. I think being transparent about your pricing is important in sales. It just, because the people who are going to buy from you don't worry about how much it is. And we'll talk about pricing more next week, but don't withhold the price. especially if somebody's asking you about it. So this was a horrible, horrible feeling in me. I was just like, there was this gut feeling of, I just need to get inside. And she's on my property. And my kids are standing there looking out the window. I just hate the entire experience. I just really hated. And so I told myself I'm never going to sell that way. I'm never going to put somebody in a situation that makes them feel uncomfortable or make them have to say no more than one time. And so maybe you've had an experience like that. We talk about car salesmen like this. You ever drive onto a lot looking for a car and they swarm you? You can't walk from car to car without having them follow you. It's a very negative experience. Maybe you've had people direct message you on Instagram or Facebook and they're just like, hey, like this is very prevalent in like MLMs where they're like, hey, I have something for you that you might benefit from. Join my team. Or you just get like cold calls in your direct messages like, hey, buy my skincare stuff. And you're like, who are you? I've never heard of you. You're just sending generic messages to random people. No, I've never once bought anything like that. Maybe you've been on the other end of a cold call or a cold email, or like I was saying earlier, direct mailing, and you got it in your mailbox, and you're like, I have absolutely no idea who you are, where you're coming from, if you're trustworthy. No. Maybe you've been in an experience where you've bought something and then you've immediately had buyer's remorse because you've been in that pressure situation. You felt like you couldn't say no, and then you immediately regret buying it. And maybe you've been in a really good sales position where somebody's selling to you and you're like, wow, that was great. I really enjoyed that. And then you have the immediate limiting belief that you would never be able to replicate or mimic that. We have to remember that despite our experiences, we have to remember that there are bad salespeople out there. That doesn't mean that selling in general is bad, right? Just because we've had a bad experience doesn't mean that selling in general is a bad experience. I've had really good selling experiences, and and then you think, oh, well, I can't mimic it. Yes, you can. Remember, selling is a skill. It's something that can be learned over time. We have to lean into our strengths, and we have to remember that it's other-oriented. So we have to be good listeners. We have to have good communication skills. Okay. Maybe I need you. So we've had beliefs, we've had bad experiences. Maybe we just aren't very confident in our own skill set. Okay? Maybe we are introverted. Maybe we are awkward in conversation. Maybe all of these things. Maybe you feel awkward, especially at first, right? Or maybe it's just because you've never been trained properly, or you've thought of selling in a completely wrong way. All of those are reasons why we wouldn't want to go out and sell. Let's start adopting this idea. Selling and sales is a technique that can be learned, and that's why we're here, okay? All right, let's talk about some bad techniques that we have maybe encountered, or maybe we've been told to do in that sales class in college or wherever else. First, maybe we overcomplicate things, okay? This may be something that I do. I feel like when I get in a situation, especially at first when I was first starting to sell, I wasn't being clear, and I was talking too much about whatever it was, and it was just like, it didn't need to be that big, huge explanation. It could just have been, I help business owners transform their businesses or build their businesses or, whatever else, reach their goals. Think of it as like your elevator pitch, okay? Especially if you're in a service. What is the transformation? What is the transformation you provide? Keep it simple, very, very simple. When we overcomplicate it, we muddle our message, and the person buying doesn't understand. They don't understand, and they're not going to buy. A confused buyer never buys. Have you heard that before? A confused buyer never buys. Okay? Maybe we're overselling. This is another bad technique. We're overselling. You need this. You have to have it. This is life-changing. We're just being so dramatic about it. Have you ever experienced that? This is very common on like infomercials where it's just like over and over and over and over and over and over again. You're like, I get it. I still don't want it. And you're annoying me. So no, I'm definitely not going to buy it. We want to make sure that we are, not pushing it. And this is a good reminder about when we're online, okay? When we're selling through our Instagram and our social media, only 10% of your content should be the offer. Only 10% of your content should be the here's how to work with me. Everything else should be adding value so that people can build trust and learn to trust you. Okay? But only 10% of your content should be your sale or your offer. And this is a good reminder not to oversell. If you just see offer all the time from people, you're like, okay, we get it. Who are you? Like, what is your personality? Are you just a sales machine? It's a turnoff. So make sure you're not selling too much. And you're not being dramatic about it either. Nobody needs anything except water and food and shelter. Okay? I would refrain from using the word need. All right, maybe we're talking too much. This is definitely something that I am very aware I do. I talk a lot when I get nervous, especially when I was first selling. I was talking a lot, and that would turn into me overcomplicating things. Okay, remember when you're selling, your job is not to talk. Your job is to listen. It's other oriented. So we're not talking, we're not explaining, we're not giving our experience, maybe giving our experiences, but not comparing our experiences with other people's. We're just listening. We're hearing where they're coming from. You're going to get so much more out of listening than you ever will from talking. I mean, this goes back to like the very basic belief about salesmen, that they're just smooth talkers. These are very antiquated, old, retired ideas of selling. We don't need to adopt that. Now it's about listening and building relationships and trust. So maybe number 4, a bad technique, number 4, is we tell people instead of ask. Selling is like conducting an interview. What do you do? What are you struggling with? Where do you want to be in a year? By answering some of those very basic questions, by asking some of those very basic questions, you get a really good grasp on what the other person is looking for. If we're telling them, well, if you want to be here in a year, then you need this. It's really a turnoff. It's not about them then. It's pressure. It's pressure. Stop telling people what they need or what they want or what they desire. Let them tell you. Ask the questions. Sometimes you get really awesome answers. Ask the genuine questions. Stop talking and start listening. Number 5 is a huge one, okay? I'm going to tell a story first. So when I first started my business, I went to a networking group, and I was talking to this woman, and her and her dad had a business that was all about building. It was, the way that I remember her explaining it is that people are building businesses, and it's them. They're solopreneurs. And then once they have to start hiring people, there becomes this kind of dissension and confusion around getting from the, hiring your first employee to now you have 10 employees and your business is growing. And so what she did was coach these CEOs into, how to build and continue building a successful business and doing it in a positive way. Okay. And so she told me this, and I was like, wow, that's amazing. That's really fun. She was like, yeah, but the sales cycle is really slow. And I was like, that was the first time I really sat back and thought about what a sales cycle might look like. With her, she's talking to me, a very, very brand new entrepreneur. And maybe, she's thinking, well, she just started, but maybe in 2, 3, 4 years, she may need my services. And so she's coming in at the ground level with me, not expecting a dime. Okay. And so number 5 is a bad technique that we sometimes do is moving too quickly. All right. Sometimes, and like I said before, the person that we're selling to is the right person. They're your ideal client, but they don't know it yet. They're not in a position where they feel it. They're not aligned. It's bad timing. But when we move too quickly, and this can be in our sales pitch, in anything, in the pressure, in the trying to close, any of it. Stop moving. It's patience. We need patience in sales. Okay? So often I have, had people reach out and they'd be like, I can't afford you right now. And instead of me, trying to convince them that they can afford me right now, I just literally say, you let me know. I'm here. You let me know I'm here. And I have faith that they will, because I'm not push pressuring them. Imagine being the person that says, no, you need it right now. You have to pay it right now. And then you go and you put it on your credit card. And then you're like, okay, every month you have to meet with this coach, right? Who convinced you that they needed. And now you have this resentment because you're getting billed every month for this thing that you can't afford. Imagine being the consumer on the other end of that. That's horrible. I want somebody to feel really good about when they buy or when they want to work with me. I'm not going to put you in a position where you are in debt. I'm not going to put you in a position where you feel bad about it. When you're ready, you come. Okay? Number 6, bad technique, and this is kind of a funnier one, but sometimes you hear salespeople answering questions that nobody has asked, right? You'll hear like, well, I'm sure you're wondering if, right? And you're like, was anybody really wondering that? Avoid those types of statements. They don't do anything. They make you seem very salesy, and it's kind of just comical. So just stay away. All right, number 7. This has to do with the patience. Oftentimes we get in a conversation with somebody over email or whatever it is, and they go, okay, I need to step back and think about this. Well, are we following up? So a bad technique would be not following up. We need to know when is appropriate to follow up. And it doesn't have to be this huge, elaborate thing. It doesn't have to be a whole other sales pitch. I have literally just followed up with people saying, hey, just following up. And it's very low pressure. Just wanted to, bring it back to the forefront of your mind. I know life is busy, just following up. But we need to know that we need to follow up because people aren't constantly thinking about you. Okay? We can't think of I need to step back and think about this as an automatic no. Because oftentimes, if somebody is an automatic no, they would have just told you no. If they have to step back and think about it, we need to let them do that, but we also need to bring it back to their attention. So we need to follow up, and we need to do it in a non-pressure way. And by doing just, hey, I'm just following up, is incredibly non-threatening, low pressure, and oftentimes opens up a new conversation. Number 8, and the last bad technique we're going to talk about today, is selling features instead of results. Okay? We always want to focus on our transformation, the transformation that's going to happen from working with me or from buying my product. What is going to happen to you over this time frame? Let's focus on a transformation instead of the things that, maybe the gadgets and the good things that will happen along the way. Okay? All right. So now we've talked about our beliefs and our limiting beliefs and maybe our bad experiences and some techniques that have formed these beliefs and things that we want to avoid in selling. Okay, so what I want you to do, what do we do now? Okay? You're like, okay, great. Now I know all the bad things not to do. What do I do now? What I want you to do is spend a lot of time over the weekend journaling around these feelings, around around selling. Where are you with it? Are you excited about it? Do you enjoy it? You're just like, I'm not really sure how to do it. Do you have any of these limiting beliefs that we've talked about today? Have you felt any of these bad techniques being used on you, and how did that make you feel? I want you to spend time with it. Okay. We must recognize those beliefs and where they come from. That's our job. That's our job right now. Okay, we have to recognize it. So journal about it, write it down. I'm going to put some homework in the group, and I'll give you some prompts and you can work through that. So next week when we start, we're going to start planting new ideas. We're going to start planting new beliefs around selling and sales. And then we're going to start implementing new techniques that feel good and that are going to work for you. Okay? So this was a very important day because it makes you understand where you are with your beliefs around selling. Learning new techniques will do nothing if you don't understand where you are currently, where your limiting beliefs are around selling, and if you feel a negative or positive way around it. That is your job. I want you to do some digging in, write it out, think about it, go on a walk, talk out loud, whatever it takes. If you need to, just write me a message in the group, whatever you want, and think about all of these things we've talked about today.